So we are on the last migration strategy of the 7 Rs, which is retain. Why retain? We'll talk about that too. But retaining certain application on premises while migrating others may be required because you may plan to revisit them later, or maybe you do not have right now sufficient information to make a decision of migration. So that can be one way that I may be retaining it. It may also be referred as revisit, reassess, or co-locate to a service provider. So I may retain it. Now let me give you an example of what we mean by co-locate. Let's say this was a data center building. There were 2000 servers running. You migrated, maybe 2000 servers were processing and running our 150 applications, just giving some random numbers here. And now we migrated all of them here. We only have 5 servers running, which is required for one of my application. Just give me an example again. Now, I don't think this is a wise decision to keep the whole data center building occupied for just sake of these 5 servers and one application. So probably what you could look into this case. So we migrated everything into, let's say, AWS. Now, maybe I want to move it to a location which is having better connectivity to AWS and which I can just rent a spatial space there, or I could rent, sometime they are referred as cage. So this could be a data center facility of a third party. You may go ahead and maybe take some cage space on which you can host these servers. They would provide you the connectivity, racking, stacking, cooling, power. That thing will be provided, internet connectivity, and probably this particular data center where I am co-locating has a better connectivity to AWS. So maybe I am having my remaining 149 applications running here, and I am still running one application into a co-location facility. So it depends. But I don't think that you would be keeping the whole building occupied still after cloud migration. So just be aware about co-location. Or you may revisit those applications and later decide to move them or not. That's why it is called revisit or reassess also. Let's talk about some of the details related to retain. Now, retain allow for evaluation of recently upgraded application in order to identify those that require immediate migration or those that could be migrated in the future. Let's say I have just upgraded my on-prem database server with the latest hardware with all the licenses, and this hardware is good for next 3 years. Just give an example. I don't see a point right now because then if I move it, I would be paying for cost of the cloud also, and this hardware or software which I bought is also there. So maybe I want to retain it. Or maybe this is a very critical server. I don't want to migrate into the first phase of migration. Maybe we have cycles, cycle 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, and maybe in the last phase or last cycle I would be migrating. So I would be keeping it right now in my environment. So best would be to retain it. Okay. Now, save cloud resource by remaining inefficiency on-prem. Maybe your application was very complicated and maybe it was not efficient at all. And that's why if you move it to cloud, it will consume more resources there. Maybe its design was faulty or was not as expected. So that's why better to keep those problems in on-prem itself. We will decide on it later. Maybe we'll revisit it. Then what could be the bad thing about it? That the longer you keep your workload on premises, the more resource you may waste supporting it. You would still need people who would be maintaining it, managing it. You would still be needing cooling facility. You would still be needing antiviruses to be running on it, patch management to happen. So that's why you may still be investing money in that. And maintaining the status quo may mean not exploring more efficiency, cost effective and productive practice in a new environment. Sometimes we do not want to change a lot of stuff, like nobody likes change, to be honest. It's a human tendency, but if we maintain that status quo for long, then probably we are not leveraging the cloud at its fullest. Also, why somebody may want to retain it? So maybe there is a lack of cloud native capabilities. Maybe I'm using a very specific type of hardware or software combination which a cloud provider is not going to give me. Maybe I have to still require that type of processing, or there is a lot of cost and continuous maintenance of on-prem hardware if I keep on maintaining or retaining those applications. So just be aware about it. So we will talk about some of the reasons why somebody may want to retain, but idea is you may be trying to minimize what should be retained after migration. Maybe you would revisit it into or reassess it into next cycle. So AWS services and tool won't apply here, means you do not have something to retain. It is your decision at your end. Yes, tools can help you. Maybe when you are doing assessment using migration evaluator or you are using application discovery service, they should be able to identify these application and then you can put a tag on them that these are not worth migrating as of now. I am going to retain it. So let's talk about questions on why somebody may want to retain it. So in retain, we keep our source environment or application which are not ready for migration. You might choose not to migrate this application in future. What are the common use cases for retain? Maybe there is a security or compliance requirement. Could be some type of compliance which is very specific to your industry and you have to follow. That's why you may want to keep it. Maybe migrating them is high risk because it is very complicated and you have not got time to plan it properly. You could not do assessment properly and it is very business critical. So let me not touch it right now. I may revisit it again. Maybe there are a lot of dependencies and those have to be migrated before this application can be migrated. So that's why I may still be retaining it. Or maybe application that are recently upgraded, as I gave you example. I just upgraded my database servers. I don't want to just waste that upgrade money. So maybe I would retain it for a while. Or maybe those applications are what we sometimes call as a sunset application. We know that they are going to be retired into 6 months. So why we make effort to move them to cloud and then say, okay, I'm going to decommission from cloud in 6 months. Let's retain them. They are already in sunset. They would be removed soon. They would be decommissioned soon. So that's why we may do it. Or maybe those applications are not making any value to your business anymore. You had an attendance system. Now all your employees are working from home. That attendance system is of no use to you at all. So that's why there's no business value to migrate it at all. Also, you may want to retain it because you are planning to migrate to a software as a service model. So you would retain it on a file till you get properly set into your software as a service model. You may go ahead and retain it for a while. Also, if there is some unresolved physical dependency, what if you are using a specific type of hardware, some type of CNC interfaces by which you are communicating to industrial adapters or industrial robots or industrial units. So maybe those physical dependency may not be available into cloud and we may want to retain the application. Also, maybe if it is a mainframe or mid-range application, non-x86 Unix application, maybe we want to retain it. There are still options available for mainframes too. I'm not saying mainframe application cannot be migrated, but you may want to still retain it depending on how complex or how complicated is migration for that. Also, sometimes performance could be a requirement that, hey, we can't migrate it at all because we want to have a performance which will not be delivered to us over internet. We want a local connectivity somehow. So that time I may still want to keep application within my environment or in a co-location facility. So I hope you are clear that you got a better understanding of what we would be doing into retain and why we would be retaining. So I hope these 7 R's are clear. We will talk a little bit more on the 7 R's on the deciding way or how to decide which R to use, and I'll point you into some additional resources after this section. So join me into next section and we'll discuss a little bit more on these 7 R's. Thank you.